Yo, what's up? It's Chris. I hope all is well. We are up here in central New York. I'm checking in Black land ownership. We are at Chisels and Ginger, the eco hub out here. You're going for a little morning walk. One thing you notice when you're out here with us, there are no sidewalks. And so that's one thing in rural areas, finding a safe place to walk.
Morning.
Hey, how you doing? But luckily there aren't a whole lot of people out here driving. So as we walk around, though, we'll be looking at some of the nature, see if you can identify some of these trees. Like, do you know what kind of tree this is? You can tell by the leaves on this here. Yeah, so is this a nice little maple tree? It is. And if you look across here, we have more maple trees. We have some birch. Now, what kind of birch is that? Is that white birch? Is that paper birch? Is that yellow birch? These are the things you have to ask yourself when you come explore. What do we have here? I'm going to call this is burdock. But it could be horseradish. Who knows? Because I don't know enough about these plants. Might need your help. Come out here and identify them. Over here, are these fir or spruce? Now, one of them has a little nodule on it, and the other one doesn't. But when you come visit us, you'll be able to identify, by the time you're done, you'll be able to identify, is this a fir tree or a spruce tree? But we'll get into that later. There's something specifically I wanted to address and talk about. And I've purposely avoided certain international conversations. I purposely have avoided certain conversations or topics that don't directly affect me in a very overt way. I think there are a number of things that end up affecting us inadvertently or indirectly, or it's not such a direct correlation, but butterfly effect. There are other things that have a very clear and overt effect in our lives. So I've avoided having some of these conversations. I don't want to see more antipathy. I don't want to see more people fractured. I don't want to see more dissolving of the social fabric, or people seeing things on social media, hearing things in their real lives and just fighting with people about it. I do want to generate conversation. I do actively work in a field where we are trying to encourage more Black folks to get into land ownership, land stewardship, be out here on the land, get more familiar with nature, reacquaint themselves with nature. And that's part of my direct work. As an artist, I have encouraged people for the past 20 years to really be themselves, put their true, authentic selves into their art, and reflect the world that they are experiencing to the other people in their lives, or the people that they've never met. And that an honest approach to art is one of the most important things in society. And I do realize that if I was stuck on an island, would I want a doctor there or a rapper? I'd want the doctor. But once everyone's alive, life isn't so awesome without the artists, without the creatives, without the people. But once everyone's alive, life isn't so awesome without the artists, without the creatives, without the people that make the experience of life better understood and more personalized. So I think art's one of the more important things in society. And I would encourage people, if you're going to make art, to do it in a real, authentic way, not just entertainment, not just content creation, not just spinning your wheels, chasing trends, or doing what you think would make you money. But if you put your heart and your soul and your spirit into your artwork, you can change other people's lives in a positive way and with major significance. And I think there's something to that and to be remembered. But some of these other conversations I kind of avoid. Like, I've purposely not said much about what's happening in Israel and Palestine. I live in New York. I have no knowledge of what it's really like to be an Israeli or Palestinian. Should I let that govern the majority of the conversations I have? I probably shouldn't. In my day-to-day life, will there be more conflict, angst, problems with that than benefit? Am I helping anybody? If my goal is to help Israelis, am I helping them by having the conversation? If my goal is to help Palestinians, am I helping them by having these conversations with other uninformed Americans? Probably not. So I avoid the conversation. I've avoided the Ukraine-Russia conversation. I'm not Ukrainian, I'm not Russian. Do I have an opinion on it? Of course, but I'm not there. I don't actually understand the full history, and talking to a whole bunch of people in America who don't know anything about anything doesn't behoove me. I haven't talked a whole lot about the ICE and migrant situation and our government basically terrorizing whole communities of people. And I've alluded to my feelings on it. But again, I'm not here illegally. I'm not a cop. I'm not in the government. I'm not one of the people that thinks the migrants are ruining the world. I'm also not one of the people that goes and fights the cops in order to protest the cops. So I haven't said a whole lot, but I'm going to be much more clear today. And folks need to remember humanity, and outside of politics, outside of social media, remembering that we have a moral center, like as individual humans, outside of our groupthink, outside of our mob mentality, we have individual moral standards for ourselves and others in our lives. And would we be okay with people we loved being treated like the vulnerable groups being affected? And no, I would not be okay if my family was Palestinian and people in another country's taxes went to paying for nuclear weapons to help oppress my peoples. If I was Israeli, would I be okay with the U.S. manipulating the Jewish experience into benefiting their own capitalist machinations? No. So do I believe the U.S. or the president or anyone in government that is not directly tied to the Jewish community is working in the interest of Israel? Hell no. Do I think anyone has Palestine or the people of Palestine's best interest in mind? Hell no. So what are you supposed to do? I'm supposed to wish that no more people get killed. I'm supposed to pray for peace. I'm supposed to say, what can I do to make the lives easier of those that have been affected? What I'm not supposed to do is turn into a mascot or a sounding block for some political arm or entity. So you've never heard me say good things about any authoritarian body. I have never supported state-sanctioned violence. There is not a single time. So now I'm not going to support it. I'm obviously going to say it's horrible what is being done to the people that are in the Levant. It's horrible what has been done in the past that led to what's happening now. But all the folks who are trying to equate being either pro-Palestinian freedom and liberation with anti-Semitic, wrong, and you don't know the definition of Semitic in the first place because some of the Palestinians are Semitic people. Next, the idea that you want freedom and liberation for people who are still seeking that within their own sovereignty. The Palestinians don't have a nation state. There were elections that were held under the guise and under the structure of an outside body. And so we know Lebanon influences what happens in the area of Palestine. We know Iran influences that. We know the U.S. influences that because at different times we were working with the PLO or weren't. At different times we were working with Hamas or weren't. Just like in Afghanistan with bin Laden and other people, just like what Saddam was saying. Isn't it funny? The U.S. works with all the people and then looks up and says, oh, but they're horrible people. We can't fuck with them anymore. And so my point of view is no more killing people. And right now, the Israeli state is using drones, is using technology, using cell phones, using everything they can to murder people who have nothing to do with wanting to murder Israelis. And so I'm tired of people acting like there is not a huge asymmetry. I'm tired of people acting like, well, there's some reason this is happening that's logical. It's not. It's not logical at all. The Palestinians pose no threat to the Israeli state, yet the Israeli state can literally wipe out the Palestinians. So I'm tired of people having this fake argument. And when they look at me like, well, how do you support the Palestinians? Being a black person, I understand European oppressiveness. And I understand the idea that a bunch of Europeans killed off a bunch of other Europeans and then decided to take land from non-Europeans. Now, you can get into a question of, well, how did the British already have access to Palestine? Well, the Jordanians and the Egyptians were involved. So cool, you can have that argument. As a black person, I can say, I understand Europeans taking advantage of non-Europeans. But also, in my life experience, the Arab world was not so supportive of the black experience. Now, there were times where, like, Malcolm X got brought out to Saudi Arabia by the king. And there have been black Americans who have been supported throughout the world as an understanding of, like, solidarity, Pan-Africanism, and anti-European colonial pressures. But in general, in my life growing up, the Arab folks, the Palestinians, the Muslims, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, none of those folks who was at the Million Man March. None of those folks spent a lot of time fighting for the rights of black people that I was around. So I don't have this idea that, like, I'm like the Palestinians. I'm not. My black experience in America is different. But I do understand land grabs by Europeans, and the Palestinians are dealing with that. I also understand, if you know the history, the earliest Hebrews were North African. Semitic people are North African in language and in nature. And so I am one of the people that does not separate Hebrews from Africanness. And so I would never be okay with killing off, quote unquote, all the Jews. Ain't nobody down with that. Like being young, where it's like, why did the white people let this happen to the Jewish folks in the 40s? What happened to the rest of the world stepping up and interfering? So I'm not one of those people who's like, well, death to Israel. No, no, no. What I am saying is a state, a nation. I'm not one of those people who's like, well, death to Israel. No, no, no. What I am saying is a state, a nation state, or a country does not deserve the same conversation or understanding as people in a geographic location. So when you say free the Palestinians or liberation for Palestinians, we're talking about people. When you say you're pro-Israeli, are you talking about the state or are you talking about the people that live in Israel? And that's a different conversation. When you think about the Russian-Ukrainian war, when it first started, I said the U.S. needs to keep its hands out of it. And my homie, who's a DJ, lives out in Thailand, got really upset and thought I was saying I don't care about the Ukrainians. What it was is the U.S. wasn't going to help them. The U.S. was going to take advantage of the conflict and sell weapons to everyone involved, get involved politically to try to leverage things we need amongst the turmoil. And you look up 2-3 years later, has the U.S. actually helped the Ukrainians defeat the Russians? Have we done things that could actually inhibit the possibility of the Ukrainians finding their own sovereignty? Does the U.S. believe that the Ukrainians should have sovereignty? Looks like no. And so what? I'm supposed to take a side or say, here's how we do side with Russia? Well, growing up, I was told that the Soviet Union was the worst thing in the whole entire universe and that the world would end if the Soviets had any geopolitical control. And that the Soviet Union was the worst thing in the whole entire universe and that the world would end if the Soviets had any geopolitical control. And you learn to find out that all of this is just talk. The Chinese, the Soviets, the U.S., Iran, all these things are notions. Like in real life, it's a bunch of people. But you get this idea that the nation state exists. You get the idea that it functions as this complete entity or is a real solidified thing. And it's not. So I have no problem not supporting any state-sponsored violence. So no, I'm not pro-Ukrainian war. I'm not anti-Ukrainian war. Motherfuckers need to stop selling weapons all around the world. People need to stop funding the politicians that support the weapons being sold. If you are going to vote in an election coming up, have you asked your representative how they feel about violence, how they feel about aggression? And where are the politicians that say, I want the fewest number of people to die at all times? I want the most amount of life and prosperity and love around the world. Which politician said that? They'll tell you they want more jobs. They'll tell you we need to do this and bring back manufacturing to the U.S. What the fuck are we talking about? Where are the people that say, I want your children to have a fulfilled, happy life where they engage in activities, whether it be educational, occupational, or recreational, that are fulfilling, that are emboldening, that reinvigorate, that are sustainable? You don't hear that. You hear politicians say, oh, humans need more jobs. Humans need more stuff. We need to make more things. We need to go kill more people. And what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like, we knew early, if you are a religious person, it's in the Bible, like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet. That, you know, all these things about don't be greedy, dog. And shout out to DMX. Stop being not covet. That, you know, all these things about don't be greedy, dog. And shout out to DMX. Stop being greedy. But what are our politicians doing? In the name of religion, they being greedy, they being violent, they being who knows what. And it keeps putting us at odds with each other. So you have these Christians who are like, the Muslims are bad. What? You have Muslims. Oh, these Christians are bad. What? There are obviously amazing people that believe in Jesus Christ. There are obviously amazing people that believe in Allah and follow the word of Muhammad and the Quran. Obviously. Why do we keep allowing folks who never had our back? Like, what you think of any way you get information, whether it's Fox News, whether it's CNN. Do you know anybody that works in the executive offices of those companies? Does anyone in your real life have any influence on what information comes out of those platforms? No, probably not. Yet we'll listen to it and go argue with people in our lives. The people who work at CNN never had your best interest in mind. They need to make money selling advertisements or doing whatever else they do to generate revenue. The people at Fox News do not have our best interest in mind. They make money selling advertisement and paying for influence. The people in government, when's the last time you saw a senator or a congressperson that wasn't a millionaire? And how many people in the U.S. on average are millionaires? I believe the average single person income in the United States is somewhere around $30,000 to $50,000, somewhere in there. Dual income is somewhere, single person income in the United States is somewhere around $30,000 to $50,000, somewhere in there. Dual income is somewhere like 40 to 80,000. 80 to 100,000, something like that. So people making $1 million are so not average in our society. Yet all the people making decisions for us are millionaires. How are you going to legislate for the poor when you ain't poor? How are you going to legislate for the downtrodden when you're part of the group that keeps people downtrodden? How are you going to legislate for those who at times were considered undesirable or the most vulnerable if you don't even understand vulnerability? But we keep electing these people. We keep allowing these people to make decisions for us. So I'm saying all this today to say, I'm not here to support putting humans in cages. The penal system and the criminal justice system or the prison industrial complex is legitimate. We need to have a talk, because have you ever been in jail? Have you ever literally been inside of a police precinct and see how the cops are forced to work? I feel bad for them. It's not like on TV where they got outside of a police precinct and see how the cops are forced to work. I feel bad for them. It's not like on TV where they got all the fancy gear. There are very few police stations like that. And then you see how the people are treated once they're incarcerated. That's just in a precinct. You ever go to jail? Like, you ever go to where the county holds people and detains people? You ever go to where the state holds or detains people? You ever see what a federal detention center looks like? You ever see what an immigration detention center looks like? You ever seen any of these things? No. But you okay with little kids being separated from their parents and stuck in cages? You okay with families being broken up? What kind of trauma does that do? What is the eventual kids being separated from their parents and stuck in cages? You okay with families being broken up? What kind of trauma does that do? What is the eventual long-term effect of picking up all these different families and traumatizing the 4-year-olds, the 6-year-olds, the 7-year-olds in the name of what? I am tired of the fake arguments. Migrants didn't enslave black people, okay? So everyone who's so worried about what migrants are going to go do to America, what are the effects of the migrants? They're going to ruin America. They're going to ruin our culture. Their gang's going to take over. It's racist, first, what you're saying. Because when people say migrants, they're not talking about the South Africans. They're not talking about the Ukrainians. They're not talking about the Polish people that live in my neighborhood. They're not talking about any of them. You know who they talk about when they talk about migrants. But before they were migrants, how did the white people even get here? Stole the land. Hey.
Wildcat right out here last night.
Wildcat out here?
2 in the morning, screeching loud.
Wow.
Not the first time either.
I haven't seen one yet out here.
I don't want to see it.
You be safe. They got wildcats out here. See, we in central New York for real. The neighbor has to warn you about the wildcats. But, before any of this migrant talk, and then now, if mad because the native people want to come back to the land that they used to occupy, okay, let's go even deeper. Did the migrants make it so that Africans were treated as property? Nope. Did the migrants make it so that women who were even part of the European culture were treated as property? Nope. Did the migrants impose Jim Crow laws? Nope. Did the migrants burn crosses in people's front yards and terrorize them so they move out of rural areas? Nope. Did the migrants impose redlining or denying the benefits of the GI Bill? Nope. Did I could go on. Like, did we have to develop denying the benefits of the GI Bill? Nope. Did I could go on. Like, did we have to develop a Civil Rights Act to deal with the oppression and the segregation that the migrants had imposed on black people? No. So when folks get all worried about migrants, I ain't worried about them. I'm worried about regular ass American white people. That is far more terrorizing to me and terrifying than any other group in this country. When I look at who dropped goddamn nuclear weapon on other humans, it was not the migrants. It was not anyone other than your good old white folks, okay? When I think about the destruction done to the ecosystem, is it the migrants? You think the groups of people coming from Guatemala and Venezuela and whatever are the ones who are using up all the land and poisoning it and dumping petrochemicals along the Gulf, right into the Gulf? That's not the migrants. That's good old white folks. So I'm kind of tired of this anti-migrant talk, especially from white folks, but even from black folks and even from other people who have moved to this country that say, well, there's a legal way to do it. I feel you, but the law used to say black people and white people couldn't get married. The law used to say you don't have to honor a contract that you hold with a black person. So I learned at a very young age, the law allowed you to enslave people. The law allowed you to beat your wife. So I can't always allow the law to dictate my sense of morality. And right now, the law is saying you can run up in a person's house, kick in the door, terrorize 5 people, find out none of them are here illegally, and no one gets to sue you. You don't have to fix their door. You don't have to pay for the therapy those kids are going to need from having guns in their face at 2 a.m. You don't have to deal with the effect of that man or that woman being drug out of the bed and slammed into the floor in front of their family. Off of what? Because you're worried they may not have done their paperwork. And then you get into the whole realm of people that came under the government's support, where the U.S. said, you can come to America, you don't have to fill out the paperwork yet, and it's going to take 2 or 3 years, but we're going to get you through the paperwork, and you'll be okay. Well, a year and a half into it, new president, and the president says, fuck all y'all here illegally. What? That shit is crazy to me. And the number of people that are okay with it because it doesn't affect them. If you are an American-born U.S. citizen, you're not even worried that they sending these motherfuckers to El Salvador who may or may not be citizens. No due process. You sitting there like, well, they can't do it to us. And then they tried. And then they're like, oh, but that's because this person, you keep making these excuses. You need to recognize the aim on the target can end up in your direction in terms of the government deciding that the group of people you're with is the problem. But right now, it's not. So you don't care. You're looking at it like, well, if these migrants follow the rules. Have you ever tried to immigrate to the U.S.? Do you have any idea how convoluted the actual rules are? There's a certain point, my homies are trying to get married. And one of them had moved from, I don't remember which country, European country. And the immigration person is like, you have to stay in the country illegally in order to do the marriage part. What? Well, you have a tourist visa that lasts for this. What you have to do is stay 1 day after your tourist visa, then go to the embassy and you apply for the marriage form. But But if you're here under tourist, you can't get both at the same time. So you can't be here as a tourist while you start working out your marriage idea. That's dumb as hell. It leaves people in a very dangerous scenario. Also, immigration motherfuckers, the lawyers, don't always know what the fuck they're doing because every municipality is totally different. And depending on the type of way you're trying to immigrate, whether it's asylum, whether it's for work, whether it's for who knows what reason, for school, there's a different set of categories that allow for it. And so the lawyers don't always know what they're doing and overcharge the shit out of people. So if you've ever been around people that were trying to immigrate to the U.S., you already know how much of a clusterfuck the process was. It was never done properly. So before you start blaming all the migrants and all the people that don't follow the rules, go look and read what the rules have been. Since 1985, how has the immigration law been set up? How have immigration courts been set up? Have they ever been funded properly? I can't even get into like how border control has been privatized. You got a whole bunch of militiamen and wild boy yahoos down there terrorizing people at the border under the guise of national security. And I'm just over it. Like I wanted to go on this walk, look at some nature in order to regroup and settle myself. But in terms of the general American theme, as a black person, I don't have an attachment to any other country but America. Am I uber patriotic? Not at all. It would make sense. The police still act crazy towards me. But I do also recognize I've seen how the police act in some other countries, and I'm glad that we have it better than those countries. I've seen how the government works in other countries. I've traveled. I've been around. There's no other place in the world that I would be living other than America right now. I've been to other places. I think Europe is dope. I've been to the Caribbean. I've been to the Middle East. And all these places are dope. But for what I'm into and my way of being, I really like being in America. I do like the freedoms that are offered here. I do love the ability to express self as an artist. I love the way I can run my own business in a certain capacity and make a life that I want. And I have to recognize and appreciate that. Also, I like the idea that if the make a life that I want, and I have to recognize and appreciate that. Also, I like the idea that if the American dream is real, I like the idea that we are all equal under whatever the creator is in the universe. Whether you are man, woman, child, whether you are straight, queer, don't know, whether you are trans, male, female, whether you believe what I believe or don't, whether you want to ski or you'd rather surf. America is such a huge country with so much space that we can do so many different things and allow other people to do and live as they want to live. I like that idea. I like the idea of let's not have a corrupt government. I like the idea of let's not have a corrupt police force. I like the idea of let's not have an abusive and corrupt law enforcement system or justice system. I like the idea that in what America espoused, this notion of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, freedom, justice, equality, these are all amazing concepts. Moral good, like this idea of we want the world to be better than it was. Those are parts of the American dream and ideal that I fully believed in. What happened to that? Why are people now okay with, well, if you make enough money, be an asshole and be horrible to this other person? Well, if it makes enough money, exploit these people instead of help liberate people. This rugged individualism has turned from, let me make sure I'm good so that I can take care of the other people around me, to, it don't matter what happened to the people around me. And I don't like that. I don't like the ability to compartmentalize and isolate and act like what's happening in the world around us isn't happening, or act like we're not partially influencing it. So every person that pays isn't happening, or act like we're not partially influencing it. So every person that pays their taxes is part of the violence happening with what the taxes buy in terms of weapons, political influence. Every person re-electing the politicians that send people to war, contributing. And a lot of people say, well, I don't know what to do. What can I do to stop it? I don't have an answer for in your life what you should do specifically, but I would say start with your moral center. Start with what is it you really believe in? What are you really moved by? Where do you see that the world could be better? And how do you contribute to that? And I'm not saying that means you have to go into politics. I'm not saying that you have to do anything definitive in order to be involved. We each, as humans, will affect other people in our lives without even trying. One of the illest things in life is this notion of you can't abstain. There is no neutral. Everything you do will have some consequence in the universe around you, and you will never know the magnitude of it. So what's going to be your intention? What are your goals? And never know the magnitude of it. So what's going to be your intention? What are your goals? And in a simple example, what are the goals if you were saying you're anti-woke, you're anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion? Are you really saying you're anti-diversity? You want everything to be the same, homogenous? I wouldn't espouse that. Are you saying that you want a lack of diversity? You want the lack of diversity and a lack of equity. So you also don't care about humans having opportunity to experience life. Again, I don't rock with that. I would never say, I don't want equity. And you don't want inclusion. You want exclusion? That makes no sense. Like, if you really break it down, are the people who are anti-DEI, do they even know what they're saying? And so ask yourself, outside of the politics, outside of what president said, who or what is it you're actually arguing about? What are you championing for? And when I'm talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's not about only help women or only help black people or take away from white people. It's about how do you have diverse opinions, lifestyles, experiences, histories come together? And how do you use that diversity of experience to problem solve together, to work together, to formulate new ideas, to develop what has never been done in humanity? That's the beauty of diversity, equity, and inclusion, is like if we all have a way to come together and communicate, we will problem solve in a way that's never been seen in human history. And I'm a fan of that. I'm not a fan for the idea of, well, we don't want any diversity. We want closed-mindedness. We want everyone the same. We don't want to have discussions that are difficult. Humans do hard shit. Look at all those houses across the lake. All those houses over there. That's humans doing hard shit. Like literally centuries. People have been coming out here and figuring out ways to work within the environment and survive. And so don't give up on yourselves. Even if you think like, yo, it's hard. I don't know what to do. I don't know the direction it's going. Don't give up. And know that we can figure it out. Humans do tough shit. And these politicians and other people in power with money benefit from us believing we have no say. They benefit from us removing ourselves from the conversations. Don't let that happen. Engage. This is not tune out, drop out, take acid time. This may be the time to not participate in certain structured institutional activities, but it doesn't mean that we go dormant. This is time for more action, more activity, and that means as an artist, make more shit. Put your real thoughts and feelings into it. Do not just follow the trends. If you have a job, do your fucking job. Like if you are in a job that you hate, stop wasting your life. There's someone who had a dream to start a business and you're working to facilitate it. Or are you the person with the dream and you're working with people to facilitate it? I'm a fan that if you have a dream, your life should be working towards that dream and make it a plan, not keep it as a dream, but implement the plan. And if you're okay working with other people to achieve their plan, awesome. But if you're not, it's time to be active. So I'm glad I got to talk to y'all, get this off my chest. It's about love. That's at the end of the day. It's about. I'm glad I got to talk to y'all, get this off my chest. It's about love. At the end of the day. It's about love. And if you see me with a Palestinian flag, it's not because I want to kill anybody. It's because it's for love. If you see me saying I stand with the migrants and I got a T-shirt that says that, it's because I love humans and treating humans like they're animals because you've defined them as such, or they have violated a codified set of rules and standards. I believe they should still be treated as human status as a migrant, criminal, or anything like that. And the synonymous equivocation and the false equivocation of migrant equals criminal is not something I'm going to stand with. Humans are not criminal for just existing. Peace and love. I'm going to talk to y'all later.